Hey, hey, everybody, let's have some fun. You only live but once, but when you're dead, you're done. So let the good times roll. Let the good times roll.
Mafia 2 was released by the talented 2K Czech and published by 2K Games, releasing back on August 23rd, 2010, almost 10 years ago. Do you guys feel old yet? Because I fucking do. It came out to generally favourable reviews from both critics and players alike, gaining quite a cult following, yet notably while playing, most people can tell the game's open world had some cut content that didn't make it into the final release version. And there are many reasons for this, yet the most common ones being a lack of budget and lack of time to flesh out these what would have been really cool features that may have added some extra depth to Empire Bay, although some were eventually resurrected. In the game's story expansions, there are quite a few features and other pieces of content that we didn't get to experience at all, so here are 10 things that didn't make it into Mafia 2. Number 1. 4 multiple endings. Now 2K Czech decided to bin the idea of including multiple endings in Mafia 2, senior producer Denby Grace at the time. Speaking in an interview with IGTV back in the day, Grace said that at one point Mafia 2 had 4 different endings that played out in different timelines. Per ASPERA at ASTRA, September 26, 1951, which was the ending we ultimately got. The second ending was High Time, which intended to end October 18, 1953 in game. Then Friends for Life, July 22nd, 1955, and finally Family Business, which was meant to end January 18th, 1954. But they were cut as they didn't meet 2K Czech's high standards. Quote, "We had 4 multiple endings at one point in the game, and then we looked at it and we had one really outstanding great ending. We just said, you know what, let's just ditch these other endings. This is the ending everyone wants, and that's one thing we're happy with, making that choice. It was probably for the best. Mafia 2's ending is one of the most memorable I've experienced in gaming, for better or worse." Number 2. Chapter 11's choice. During the early production phases of Mafia 2, Vito was to be given the option of accepting an assassination contract on Leo Galante by accompanying Henry in the chapter titled A Friend of Ours, while in the final version, Vito quickly travels to Leo's home to warn Galante about the hit. So initially the plan was to give the player a choice to travel with Henry or to either warn Leo, which is rather cool. Number 3. Vito's girlfriend. So one of the more notable cuts was Vito's love interest known as Monique, who was intended to be a side character in Empire Bay, with 2K Czech planning to allow Vito to take Monique to the theater on dates outside of the main missions that would perhaps show another side to our game's protagonist and add that little more depth to the character overall. Number 4. Respect and reputation. Now in the beta version of the game there was a small reputation system. Players would experience Empire Bay slightly differently based on the level of respect Vito gained from completing missions and other activities. The higher Vito's reputation happened to be, that would in turn lower the prices of clothing and guns in stores. Police fines or bribes were much less expensive. Police would even let crimes pass out of respect for Vito's position in the mob, yet killing innocents or shooting at the police themselves would decrease that overall respect level. And obviously 2K Czech didn't have the time to flesh out this system, which is a shame because for the time that would have been really cool. Number 5. Side activities and characters. During the early production phases, Vito could compete in organized fights to earn extra money outside of the main mission, supposedly arranged by Leo Galante, and these fights would also give the player some extra reputation and take full advantage of the game's melee system. Next up is betting on hound races was another planned activity allowing the player to gamble on dog races to gain or completely lose all of Vito's money, most likely the latter, let's be real. Next up was the use of Empire Bay Cab & Co, which provided our protagonist with a taxi service to the player's waypoint or other locations, with options to speed up the driver, slow down or skip the ride completely, but sadly it didn't make it. Obtaining a gun license from Giuseppe was also another cut feature from the game. Guards would ask Vito if he had a gun license on him. If he didn't, he'd be arrested or the player could bribe the officer to get out of the situation, and police would also pull Vito over for failing to stop at red lights. Number 6. The Derek side quest chain. Now outside of cut World War II missions and the other large range of cut story missions was an optional side mission chain that involved acquiring cars from Derek's rivals and hampering their business overall to help Derek out, and in exchange exchange for some extra cash, which seemed pretty fleshed out based on the 2009 Gamescom gameplay, in which Vito stealthed his way in and it just looked real good. Number 7, melee weapons. So the plan for the game initially was to have a small range of melee weapons to give the player, opening up another avenue for completing certain sections of missions, one being a baseball bat, which Vito can be seen holding in promotional images and videos prior to the game's release itself. Police batons were set to appear in Mafia 2 but were later cut, alongside a knife, brass knuckles, and many more. Number 8, safe houses. Yet again, during the early production phases of Mafia 2, Vito could purchase appliances for the different safe houses he owned in Empire Bay throughout the duration of the game, adding some small details to how each looked, and we could purchase further properties in Empire Bay from Richard Beck, who was introduced early and we never seen him again, which could have given the player a little more to work with in regards to spending their in-game cash once Vito became a made man. Number 9, additional features. As we know, in the final game, Vito could steal cars by either smashing the window or obviously picking the lock. The plan before release was to include a lock picking experience system. The more locks you picked, it could increase Vito's level and improve his overall effectiveness in regards to lock picking. The player was also meant to be able to keep weapons in their car trunks, although in the final release all we could do was simply open and close the trunk. Access to the subway stations was closed off from Empire Bay, leaving the planned subway tunnels unfinished, although they showed up a little in Joe's adventures and during cutscenes. Sitting down in chairs or sofas didn't make the final release, with the sit down option found in the game's PC files. And Vito could also do drive-bys, although it was sadly left out and was exclusive for non-playable characters in game. Number 10, and finally, difficulty modes. Now obviously the game released with 3 possible difficulties, the options being between easy, medium and hard. However, an extreme difficulty was planned that would test out players' skill levels even further, which honestly would have been brutal, because for anyone who hasn't played Mafia 2 on hard, some checkpoints are rather unforgiving in that game though. But yeah, that is it. There's a much larger list of cut content like sidecars, other vehicles, weapons, and so much more, but these were the 10 most interesting to me, even though I listed out more than 10. Looking back, it's a little sad to think that both Mafia 2 and Mafia 3 were pushed to meet deadlines, and it leaves me thinking sometimes, what if, you know? So here's hoping whatever they do next, 2K Games and Take-Two Interactive give them the proper time they need. But that's it from me in this video, and as always, I have a question for you guys. What is the one piece of cut content that you would have liked to seen in the full version? Let me know. And we will have some more Mafia videos on the way, alongside our facts and character videos. Later guys, catch you in the next one. Bye bye.
Everything's absolutely splendid. Walking down the street and you hear